Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Bliss Podcast. I hope you're all doing very nicely, sitting at home by a warm fire or a heater, chanting Hare Krishna, or reading Srila Prabhupada's books. If you're not doing these things, why not? They're very nice activities. They bring you spiritual bliss. Try it out. We have ebooks on our website, Expand the Bliss. We have Srila Prabhupada's original books. We have ebooks compiled by devotees. His Grace Purujit Prabhu, the founder of this Bhaktivedanta Lives in Sound Society. So you can read these books. You can get spiritually enlightened. Oh, that's a much better use of time. However, people waste time nowadays. I don't know how people do it. Anyway, welcome to the Bliss Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about spiritual subject matters. Not any damn nonsense, exactly. Of course, coming from my mouth, it can be interpreted as nonsense. I try to keep it according to what my spiritual master, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, has spoken. But I'm a conditioned soul, prone to so many defects. So anyway, we're going to see how it goes. Usually I do this podcast with it's a person. I do this podcast with a guest. I've done this podcast now with Bhaktanes Prabhu, who is a devotee in the Bhaktivedanta Lives in Sound Society. I've done this with Makanchal Prabhu, His Grace Makanchal Prabhu, and with His Grace Purujit Prabhu. If you haven't heard our podcasts, we have many podcasts. Maybe not as many as some people, but 60 or so podcasts, and they're each an hour long. So I highly recommend that you go back and you catch up with the other podcasts. Do that now, so I can save some time and think about what I'm going to say on this podcast. Okay? Very nice. So, now you're back after having heard all 60 hours, right? Hare Krishna. So, yes, the Bliss Podcast. Before I get into the subject of today, which is a rather juicy subject, if I do say so myself, maybe juicy is not also the correct word. More like this is kind of like a spicy. Spicy is better. Spicy subject matter. A little controversial. A little less known, less talked about aspect of Hare Krishna, Krishna consciousness. So anyway, nonetheless very interesting. But before I do that, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we do at Expand the Bliss, what's going on. If you're not familiar with Krishna consciousness at all, it's a very simple philosophy. It begins with the fact that you're not this body. The body is changing so many times throughout a person's life, changing from little bodies to bigger bodies to old, wrinkly bodies, but the person inhabiting said various bodies is always the same. So that is the consciousness. That is actually the person. It's not the body. We think we're the body. We think that we're tall, small, black, white, man, woman, thing, whatever it might be, dog, hog. But we're none of these things. We're actually consciousness. We're actually spiritual entities, and we are, as spiritual entities, we're parts and parcels of the supreme spiritual entity, which some people might refer to as God, but we don't refer to him as God. We refer to him as Krishna. Krishna, very important aspect of the Krishna conscious philosophy, as the name would indicate. The name Krishna indicates the personality of Godhead, right? A person has a name. If you think of a person, generally you're thinking of a person, right? You're thinking of your beloved or somebody in your family. You don't just think of you don't just think man. Oh yes, man or woman is so dear to me. It's not so general. Being, living entity A is very dear to me. No. You think of the person's name, right? What the person likes to do, what the person looks like, the friends of the person, right? The activities of the person. So this is everything that's included within a personality, and God is the original person. We are all persons, we all exist on the basis of God's personality. So what to speak of God? God is also a person, right? If you ask any religious person, they will also say God is a person, but maybe they don't have the full information. So the Krishna conscious philosophy tells us about the personality of gods, and also the soul's relationship with God, and gives a practical process how to re-establish that relationship through the practice of meditation. And not theoretical, practical. You can try chanting Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very simple. There's 16. Is it syllable? No, that's 32. 16 words. Mantra comprised of 3 words, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. Very simple. You just chant this mantra, one piece. You chant it, you hear the whole thing, and you connect to God directly, because God is non-different from his name. He's absolute. So this is a very nice process. You just chant, and you will feel spiritual enlightenment. Right? I mean, anyone can say, but you must, first of all, you must try out yourself to verify whether what I'm saying is true. So why not try it out? Very simple. Anyone can do it. A child can do it, right? Even a dog can dance while it's being, sometimes we sing the mantra in a kirtan, what is called kirtana. You sing with musical instruments, make it very melodious. It also increases the spiritual ecstasy. So even a dog can take part in this meditation. And also, because the dog is not a dog, it's also a spiritual entity. Not a sectarian philosophy also, because every living being is a spiritual entity, not the body. Everyone is included in Krishna consciousness, because every soul is part and parcel of God, Krishna. So anyway, that is the philosophy. In very short, it can be greatly expounded upon, unlimitedly, because God is unlimited. But in short, it can be summarized in this way. So at the Bhaktivedanta Lives in Sound Society, or BLISS for acronym sake, because sometimes it's a little bit of a handful. If you're in a rush somewhere, you don't always have the time to say that, oh, I'm off to the Bhaktivedanta Lives in Sound Society temple. Sometimes that can be a little too much. So you just say the Bliss temple. But what we do is we are spreading the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. We're expanding the knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has given. We're trying to distribute it all over the world and include others in this process. And we have our own style in doing that also, through these various media, content mediums, podcasts, ebooks, live streams, personal connections, articles, many other mediums. And you can check all these out on our website and our other social medias, which I'm going to put in the description of this video for your easy clicking. I put a lot of work in to put those links in the description, so you could do me a little favor and click them. That would be nice. So thank you at least for clicking on this podcast and listening. Wow, already 9 minutes and 30 seconds in. I can't believe I've been talking for this long. It is crazy. So let us now talk about something substantial, Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my breath. Of course, I'm talking about something relatively Krishna conscious. But if you don't talk about Krishna or things in relation to Krishna, it is a waste of time. It doesn't bring any actual, result. There's nothing you can gain from it. Actually, You're simply expounding your energy into the air. It doesn't go anywhere. You should do something that will bring you a permanent benefit. That is talks about Krishna, hearing about Krishna. That benefits the soul. That is eternal benefit. So anyway, let's not just be theoretical, let's get into it. What is the subject of today's podcast? Okay, now, some people think that we are a cult. I've personally heard this many times, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books on the streets of various countries. I remember one time in Gibraltar, which is a little island off the southern coast. There's a little peninsula in Spain, in the southern coast of Spain, and off the coast is a little island, which is a territory of the United Kingdom. So we had a temple there previously, and most of our podcasts, I think, are actually recorded in a Spanish town next to that Gibraltar. So you can hear the Gibraltar pastimes a lot if you hear these old podcasts. Anyway, it's a very nice place, very nice people. And we would go there and we would distribute Srila Prabhupada's we take carbonated water here. Carbonated water is very palatable. I'm very fond of it. I don't know why, but it does also cause these kind of inconvenient hiccups. So please excuse me. So anyway, yes, we were going to this nice island of Gibraltar. We were distributing books. And one lady, I tried to stop her to give her a book, and she protected her children and screamed at me, "I'm not going to join your cult!" So, yes, sometimes we get, uncalled for reactions like that. In one sense, maybe it does seem a little alien. Krishna, the appearance, the outward, external appearance of Krishna consciousness, or the practice of Krishna consciousness, may seem a little foreign. I would say is an appropriate word to use. A little foreign. You'll see devotees wearing, provided they're following Srila Prabhupada, they're wearing tilaka. Tilaka is kind of mud that's worn on the face. Sometimes we crack a little joke, but it is of course just a joke. Sometimes we crack a little joke that we put the peanut butter on the face. It makes people on the street laugh, but actually it is sacred mud from the Ganges. So it's kind of placed in a kind of like an arrow on the forehead down the nose in a bright golden streak. Very beautiful. I have to say, transcendental looking signature that devotees wear. But it can be a little striking also. The Western world hasn't exactly adjusted. There is no such fashion here yet on the streets of London. Hopefully, with the continuation of the Krishna consciousness movement, it will become very fashionable. Why don't you try it out? Be a trendsetter in your local town. Put on some tilaka. Anyway, we also sometimes wear what people might refer to as, if they have a poor fund of knowledge, they might refer to as wearing bed sheets. So they're not bed sheets, actually. They're very nice, comfortable cloth, very simple cloth called a dhoti, and a kurta, or for Matajis or women, they're called sari. So it's just simple cloth that we wear. We don't like to dress ourselves up. These things are not so important. Our philosophy is to live very simply and save time for spiritual realization. Part of that living simply is also minimizing unnecessary activities which divert the mind, such as intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating, and gambling. So these might... Oh boy, I'm sure some people just clicked off this podcast very quickly. But these if you look at it from a scientific point of view, these activities are a complete waste of time. And they're not actually very enjoyable at all, although people place a lot of emphasis. Some people even say that these activities are the most essential things in life, the basic necessities of life. Wow, how I can go on without drinking, how I can go on without sexing up, how I can go on without taking a nice big steak. So it may seem a little intimidating at first, but actually these things are not very pleasurable. You intoxicate for some time, and then the next morning, it's temporary first of all, and the next morning, then you wake up with a horrible hangover. You did so many things that you regret. You vomited. You destroyed the liver. Right? You broke relationships, lost money, damaged the brain, make yourself look like a fool, tastes like acid. Horrible. Horrible. Totally messes you up. Actually, it's only a relief. People really only drink. You could even do kind of like a study that people drink more when they're in a distressful condition. Why? Because drinking itself is not a pleasure, but it gives the mind some kind of break from anxiety or a large amount of duress. So these things are not really pleasure. They're escapes from a world that is completely devoid of actual pleasure. So, but people don't really think about it like that. And they think that these are the basic essentials of existence. So when they see Hare Krishna devotees, and they know that that devotees don't indulge in these activities, they become very disturbed in the mind. They start speculating that this is a cult, or they have been brainwashed. There is no other way that they could give up these basic necessities unless their mind was controlled. Yes, that is actually the fact. That is true. That is actually what devotees do. They control the mind. They control the senses. That is the process of yoga. Yoga means a life of controlling the senses. But it's not brainwashing in the sense that most people are considering what brainwashing is. People consider brainwashing something against your will, something imposed upon you, where in your sober state, so-called sober state, whatever that means, normal state of consciousness, that's something you would never do normally, something that you would find very unpalatable in your sober state of mind, that is being forced upon you now, a new state of consciousness. So it is not exactly like that. Devotees, people who take to Krishna consciousness, this philosophy of Krishna consciousness is for the most intelligent class of people. If you have taken to Krishna consciousness, you are included in a very intelligent class of people. Why? Because you realize that actually this life of unrestricted sense pleasure, of which the 4 activities aforementioned are the root of this sense pleasure. There are many other sense pleasure activities that are connected with these 4 previous activities. But this life of sense pleasure is not actually very satisfying. No one has become, it's not actually possible to become permanently happy by such pleasure. You enjoy for some time, and the nature of the material world is like you build a sandcastle. Nice, opulent sandcastle with very nice shell jewels and decorations and seaweed draperies. Very beautiful sandcastle. But then big wave, and it's gone. That is the nature of the material world, material existence. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita, and now I've a little spaced out, I don't actually know which shloka it is, but the Sanskrit is, bhutva praliyate. Okay, so you can look that up and help me in my unlearned position. You can look that up on the internet. Which sloka is Maitreya referring to? Please put it in the comment section below. Help the foolish Maitreya with his Bhagavad Gita knowledge. Anyway, this shloka roughly translates to: the nature of existence is coming in and out. It's sometimes unmanifested and sometimes manifested. Right? Just like how at nighttime, all of our activities, they stop, and a day they start again. Alright, so similarly, this whole material world is going in and out of existence. Also the living entity, the body we're born with, right? You can understand from a smaller scale example, because I'm sure most people who listen to this podcast are not old enough or will not live long enough to experience the, creation of the material world and the end of it, and then its subsequent creation again, but they can experience that a body is created out of the womb of the mother, and then it goes through a period of growth, then it declines, it gets older, so to speak, and then it dies. It goes into the ground 6 feet under, and it starts to decompose. So the body, which is the boat that's sailing across the sense-pleasure ocean, is temporary, and therefore all pleasure derived from the senses is also temporary. But still, the senses are dragging us this way and that, like very annoying children. Let's say the children are pulling your hands this way, that way. You have 5 children. One is called the eyes, one is called the nose, one is called the mouth, one is called the ears, one is called the another sense that I can't think of just at the present moment. Eyes, nose, okay, whatever. So you have children with very weird names, and they're all pulling you in their own directions to, after you've come home from work, they want you to come to this room, that room, play with them, teach them, talk to them, something. So in the same way, the senses are always nagging us and pulling us and distracting the mind and causing us, they leave the mind no rest. Our senses are always pulling our mind in different directions, and we find no peace of mind. So how can a life with no peace of mind ever be happy? You can't be happy in such a situation. So yoga means to control the senses and therefore control the mind. Yes, wash the brain, brainwash. And then that is described also by Lord Chaitanya, who is the originator of this Hare Krishna movement. Chaitadapanam Majanam. You clean this mind, which is full of material attachments, desires, impressions of previous traumas and experiences. The mind is so full of all these things that it is constantly disturbed. Very dirty mind we have. And if you look at it like that, we don't have a clear consciousness. We're always stuck in thinking about the past, experiencing the present through those senses that are pulling us this way and that, and we're always thinking about the future also, and an anxiety for the future. So the mind is dirty, and the process of yoga means to control the mind and focus it on the Absolute, or Krishna, God, the Supreme Person. If you focus on Krishna and your natural propensity to serve and love Krishna, then the mind has found its final resting spot. It's found the ultimate goal. It's found its original purpose. The mind is originally spiritual, and its purpose is to think about Krishna and love Krishna. So through the process of Krishna consciousness, you're pushing aside all these temporary sense pleasures, and you're finding the ultimate peace, Krishna consciousness. So it is brainwashing. Yes, actually Hare Krishna is brainwashing, but not in the sense that you're thinking when you hear the words and you have an initial biased impression of what that word means. Anyway, some people didn't think about this so deeply, And as a consequence, they caused a lot of damage. A lot of damage in the lives of practitioners of Krishna consciousness. And not just the practitioners of Krishna consciousness. Although I won't say anything about the philosophy of other practices, also in the lives of people who practiced other kinds of meditation or religious beliefs like that. So these unscrupulous persons, there is one by the name Ted Patrick, maybe you've heard of him. They would go so far as to abduct practitioners of Krishna consciousness and try to deprogram, which is a very ironic word, considering the fact that although the goal of what they were trying to do is stop the so-called brainwashing, they themselves would actually brainwash devotees. And as far as I'm informed, this still goes on today. So this is a huge nonsense. And anyway, I thought I would just not speculate, and which is a very fond habit of mine as a conditioned soul. So I thought I'd bring some evidence. If you don't believe me, there's a couple movies that you can find online. Well, not just a couple, many, even interviews with the man himself, where this problem or this practice is being described. So I'm just going to bring up a couple things here. This is from a movie made by a devotee, Yadubara. He is a devotee of a disciple of Srila Prabhupada's, and he made a kind of a nice movie. It has its things, but it's alright for the purposes we're going to be discussing today. And he has a portion there where he's actually showing kind of the social unrest around this particular topic, and it's very nicely described. So I'm just going to play that now and we can discuss further.
Many would consider members of the Hare Krishna sect to be little more than a noisy nuisance. They've been labelled dangerous religious fanatics and lumped together with cults, but the Krishnas say they're simply misunderstood.
They are the mafia of the religious world. As a matter of fact, they have ties to the organized crime families in the United States.
Now, yeah, it's a serious charge.
It sure is.
But are you saying that crime is an organized planned program of the Hare Krishna?
Yes.
The scholars called it the NRMs, the New Religious Movement.
The story you're about to see is a parent's nightmare, the story of a family whose daughter disappeared. When they finally found her, they had to fight just to get to talk with her because she had joined a cult.
Thousands and thousands of young people leaving their former religions and joining the NRMs. The parents and the religious leaders, there was a tremendous backlash.
Cheryl Zimmerer is 18. She tried university and a job in Treasury before leaving both to join the sect a few months ago. Today, after her initiation by the spiritual master, she says she's found true happiness. But her mother and her aunt are not so sure.
She's given up university to do this, given up everything, she's not working. And I can't see any future in it all. What's going to happen in 10 years' time?
There's worried that, in fact, all the things you're saying are largely due to brainwashing. Are you worried that she's worried?
I'm so worried that she's worried, but I don't think she should be.
These parents became alarmed.
Because they're actually kidnapping people. You'd be walking on the street and they would just throw you in a car. And they'd say, your parents are in the car behind us. We need to talk to you. And they'd put you in a hotel. Parents were hiring people who would kidnap us and try to deprogram us. So there was a whole business started of deprogramming.
You think that these groups have techniques of mind control that you feel are dangerous? Yes, Hare Krishna is one of the main ones. And they use the same technique. It's no different from Guyana. Jim Jones is no different from Hitler.
The anti-cult movement developed this theory that anybody that would join one of these movements could not possibly have done so voluntarily. It had to be the victim of mind control, that they were brainwashed. Of course, Prabhupada admitted many times, yes, we are brainwashing. The brain is very dirty, and we are cleaning it. This was a case, People versus Murphy. Criminal charges brought against two devotees in the Supreme Court of New York City. This was an attack on everything that we stand for, on the fundamental principles of the Bhagavad Gita, that the Bhagavad Gita is a tool of mind control.
Prabhupada said, our defense statement is the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the nectar of devotion, the nectar of instruction. He said, you present all of our books. He said, let the case go on for years. That the more he got attacked, the more energized he became. He was a fighter. Prabhupada loved a good fight.
So, okay, so that kind of gave you a little history with some excerpts of certain news anchors discussing this subject matter. Gives you an idea of just how ill-informed people are actually about the nature of the movement. There was just one comment that I wanted to comment on there before I get into what I was mentioning before we got into this clip. I was thinking about this mother of the devotee woman who, in Australia, there were some Australian accents there, maybe you noticed. So there was a devotee girl who had joined the movement. She had just been initiated, and her mother was in extreme anxiety because she had given up her university to pursue Hare Krishna. So her anxiety was, oh, she's given up university, she's given up her job, and I don't see any future in this. What will she be in 10 years? So it's very amusing in one sense, because if you look at it from another perspective, if you look at it from our perspective, we could also say the same thing. You know, why waste? Why go to university? And why get a job? Why work hard? You know, just for, of course you can work hard for Krishna, but work hard just to put food on the table and pay rent and go on about your life, and so one day that you can retire and die, right? So if you take her question and just extend that little time frame that she gave, she said 10 years, you say, what will you be after you get a job and you get a university degree? What will you be 80 years from now? The answer for most people will be dead and gone. So what is the use of that? That is also a complete, that is a complete nonsense proposal, that you give up any higher prospects in life and you simply go to school, pay lots of money, get in debt, and then get a job, work hard all day so you can retire at a time and an age where you can't do anything because you're in an elderly body and it's very not a very good facility for enjoyment and jumping around like a spring chicken. It's not possible. And then you die. So was your life well spent without joining a cult? So-called cult? No. So you can also say that that is also, you are also in a cult, in a materialistic cult. And there's actually a class given by His Grace Purujit Prabhu on materialistic cults, kind of a flip side version of the argument. You can find it on the website. I will put a link to it in the description. Very interesting. So, yes, actually, you are in a cult. You believe, of course, they define cult as a minority of people. Purujit Prabhu very nicely explains in this class that they are also in cults. Materialist people are also in cults because they identify with a certain sectarian group of people. For example, I am black or I am white or whatever. So not everyone is black or white or whatever. These are minority groups, and you identify and you believe that you are the body. You fanatically believe that you are the body, no philosophy to back up that you're the body and that the goal of life is to just work hard or whatever, or fight for the rights of a certain subsection of people, black rights or whatever it might be. That is cult-like behavior. But just because people accept it as the norm, therefore we don't ever call it a cult. So anyway, my point was that yes, this is not a cult, because it is not imposed. This is not an imposed state of mind. This is actually the natural consciousness of a living entity. It is not that as an eternal spiritual entity, an eternal consciousness living in a temporary body, you're meant to work very hard and go to school, and that is the perfection of life. That is actually a foolish idea. If you are eternal, then why you should work for your temporary body and give no benefit to your eternal soul? Just like Jesus Christ says in the Bible, what profiteth a man if he gain the world, but he loseth, I can't remember exactly the Hebrew translation there, but he loseth his eternal soul, right? So that is not actually the real benefit. And people who have this philosophy are themselves, the whole material world is in a little cult, because actually the majority of conscious living entities are liberated living entities, living in the spiritual sky. That is the information we get from the Vedic literature. And this little portion, this little material world, is just a little fractional corner of God's or Krishna's wonderful manifestation, creation. So actually, the real cult is people who believe that they are the body, and to work for the body is the sum and substance of their life. So anyway, sometimes these people, they get a little extreme with their beliefs, their fanatical beliefs, and they try to impose them on others. So this is a dangerous cult mentality. And yes, this Ted Patrick is the exemplification of that, and he would abduct devotees. And I was just actually reading on a Scientology website, because also people in the Scientology faith, they would also become victims of this kidnapping. Very horrifying. Very horrifying that people in these materialistic cults, they can take their cult so seriously that they begin to harm other people just to support the ideas of their cult. So yes, it's described that Ted Patrick, he actually would assault people to kidnap them. He would sexually assault them to get them into the back of cars. He even grabbed a man's nether regions until he was screaming and threw him in the back of a car, and then pile-drived him, so he was basically, incapacitated. He attacked people with razor blades. In one state alone, 50 people were attacked by Ted Patrick. In another article I was reading, Ted Patrick, he deprogrammed 2,600 people. That means he kidnapped 2,600 people and forced them to, through very severe brainwashing tactics, force them to reject their particular faiths, or of course Krishna consciousness is not a faith, it's actually a science, or force them to disrespect or blaspheme their religion or their deity of choice, whatever it might be. So yeah, this is very scary. And there's a story, I actually have posted an article on our website highlighting a devotee, Krishna conscious devotee couple, that in 1976 the the wife in this couple was kidnapped by Ted Patrick, and she was forced, of course, against her will by her own family to blaspheme the spiritual master, blaspheme Krishna, blaspheme Srila Prabhupada, blaspheme devotees. They tore off her religious paraphernalia. We call it a kunti mala. It's kind of a bead necklace that devotees wear around the neck. It has a transcendental purpose that we won't get into now. So, and she was forced to throw away her beads. So, and they also locked her in a room, and until she did this, she wasn't allowed to leave. So unbelievable, right? So to me, if you just do a little comparison, any sane man can see that what is brainwashing? Is brainwashing that you come to a Krishna temple out of your own free will, and you get a book, very nice, convincing philosophy, very scientific, you are invited to question, and it's very nice, and you come to a temple, you contact them, you find out when they're doing a program, you come, and there's nice chanting, wow, beautiful instruments playing, devotees are dancing in ecstasy, you come in, you dance, you get swept up in the ecstatic mood, beautiful Krishna deities are there, attracting the eyes, and there's delicious prasadam, which is spiritual food we offer. Devotees offer food to Krishna, and it becomes spiritual food. It is completely irresistible and absolutely addicting. Maybe that is the only aspect you can say is close to brainwashing. If you take a plate of prasadam, it is very difficult to stop taking prasadam. Your brain becomes washed by taking the spiritual food stuff, and you want to take more. So you come in and you take, and very nice. And after doing that a couple times, or maybe even just one time, you want to join. Okay, and then you shave your heads, you put on the tilaka, you start chanting Hare Krishna. Very nice. Okay, now, that's one situation, and here's the other. Okay, someone grabs you from behind, throws you into a car by force while you're struggling, assaults you if you try to resist, drives you somewhere blindfolded so you don't know how to get away from that place, and throws you in a dark room for weeks or even months at a time. There's actually this woman, this Mataji, who was kidnapped. She was held against her will for 3 months. Unbelievable. So, she could be held against your will for months at a time and forced to blaspheme things which you hold near and dear while people scream at you and constantly interrogate you. Now, which one, just objectively speaking, which one sounds like a brainwash? I would say it sounds like the latter. I may be a little biased, that's okay, but I would think that most people would agree with me. The latter sounds like a brainwashing, and the former sounds like a damn good time. So, anyway, to summarize, brainwashing, yes, first of all, actually, just one more point that's very important. There is actually no such thing as a brainwash in the traditional, you could say, sense of the term, because a brainwash implies that you don't have free will. If you can brainwash someone, that means at some point that person has their free will taken away. They're no longer able to make decisions out of their free will. But this contradicts the philosophy propounded by Vedic literature, the perfect philosophy. The living entity, the soul, has free will, intrinsic free will. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you have free will. You can choose to do something or choose to do another thing. So this is the nature of the soul, is that it is not independent, but it has the ability to make decisions. It has free will, and that free will can never be impeded. It is an eternal aspect of the eternal soul. So to say that someone can be brainwashed is false. It's not possible. Someone may desire something, and he may be convinced by some particular party to believe in that thing and make a decision relating to that thing, but he can never be brainwashed or controlled, totally controlled by somebody else. It's not possible. But in the Vedic sense of the term, yes, brainwashing is possible. Yes, the brain is dirty, and it can be washed of karma, of bad habits, of trauma, of misconceptions, can be washed by the process of chanting Hare Krishna and the other practices of meditation found in Krishna consciousness. So that kind of brainwashing is very good. Who doesn't want that kind of brainwashing? That is very nice. If the brainwash is good, what is the objection? If the car is filthy, who objects to it being cleaned, right? So what is the problem? Simply a lack of knowledge. So yes, people who think that Hare Krishna is a brainwashing cult, first of all, should take an honest look at their own life, their own philosophy of life, and the society that they live in, which is imposing so many things, even from the very beginning of life, so many ideas. When you're born in a certain country, you're born with a certain family, they have a certain set of beliefs, right? You're born in a Christian or an atheistic or a Muslim or a Hare Krishna family. Of course, Hare Krishna is a little different. We're just going to take that out of that pool of examples. So you're born in a certain belief system. Atheism is certainly also a belief with no evidence to support its claims. So you grow up and in that belief system, and then you begin to believe it because your parents believe it, and generally the society or the people you associate with closely, they also believe it. So you're influenced by that. Are you also influenced by thinking, I am from such and such country, I have such and such color shade of body, I have such and such body at all, man or woman, right? So, and then you go to school, right? And then the certain, they impose science on you, and these are the laws of nature, and so many different things. So all these things are imposed on you from the very beginning, and you have no choice about the sources of this information. You have no choice what the land of your birth is, and you have no choice who your parents are. So many different influences are, you could say, brainwashing you in one sense. Of course, like I said, you can't be controlled, but you are certainly having your worldview narrowed or influenced by these various things that you can't pick. So before you accuse Hare Krishna of being a brainwashing cult, you should just take an honest look at your own life and the circumstances of your life and ask, am I in a cult? Right? And second of all, you should also research actually what is Hare Krishna, not from bogus sources like, let's just say, Ted Patrick. Right? Or maybe you can, but first of all, you should go and you should read our books, Srila Prabhupada's books. You should ask devotees. You should try the process yourself. See what all the buzz is about. See why devotees are able to give up these basic necessities of life, so-called. See why they're able to abandon everything and just chant Hare Krishna and be ecstatic. Don't be envious and then just say that we're brainwashed. Take some initiative, do some research, try it out yourself. And then you can come to a conclusion and not be brainwashed by so many biases. So, anyway, there were more things that I wanted to say, but we're getting on a little bit now for time. So, thank you for tolerating hearing me, your host, Maitreya Rishi Dasa. And please subscribe to the Expand the Bliss YouTube channel for more Krishna conscious content, bliss content. We do these podcasts every Monday. And we also have live streams on our Facebook page. so many things. It's a real ocean of bliss content. Once you take a dip, you'll realize how deep this ocean is, how deep this rabbit hole goes. So yeah, I'm gonna put all the links down there. You can start swimming. And thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna. See you next time. Jai Srila Prabhupada.